Welcome to the Immigration Information and Resources Forum hosted by AAUW Lompoc-Vandenberg with sponsorship by the Lompoc Unified School District and the League of Women Voters, Northern California, Northern Santa Barbara County. We're very happy to be offering this critical forum in dual languages with live interpretation. Using an iPad, this slide just shows us how to access your preferred language. You circle more, you circle language interpretation, and you choose either English or Spanish. If you're on a computer, you're looking for the More button and then the globe for interpretation. English and Spanish are available, and then you choose your preferred language, either English or Spanish. If you're tuning in via smartphone, you're looking for that More button for language interpretation, and then choosing either the English or the Spanish channel, and then clicking Done. And with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the forum, Dinah Perez Lockhart, who is president of AAUW Vandenberg, and we welcome her and we welcome this fine panel, and we thank the audience for coming.
Well, thank you, Lucy. And yes, good afternoon and welcome to our dual language forum on immigration in Lompoc. I am Dinah Perez Lockhart, today's moderator, and I'm currently president of the American Association of University Women, Lompoc-Vandenberg branch. AAUW is a nonpartisan organization committed to a mission of equity for all and is open to all genders. As this webinar is in dual language, I want to remind everyone to speak slowly to assist our interpreter, Marisela Trenado, as she translates into Spanish. After our panelists have given their opening statement, we will begin to answer questions submitted by you, our Zoom viewers. You do not have to give your name to ask a question. Okay, let's go to slide 2. Here is our agenda. I will introduce our speakers. Each speaker will have up to 10 minutes for their opening statement. You may submit questions anytime during the webinar, even when people are speaking. After the panelists have spoken, we will read the questions we have received and allow for the panelists to respond. Let's look at the third slide. Look at that myself. Here are our speakers for today. Primitiva Hernandez, Executive Director of 805 Undocufund. Brian Jaramillo, Assistant Superintendent, Lompoc Unified School District. Julissa Pena, Executive Director of the Immigrant Legal Defense Center. Monserrat Nolasco, Department of Justice, Accredited Representative, Importa SB. Eric Ramirez Zepeda, Policy Advocate for Cause. Okay. And with that, I'm going to start with our opening statements. And Primitiva, you're first up. Would you like to begin with an overview of 805 Undocufund?
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation, first and foremost. It's a pleasure being here today. I live in Lompoc myself, so I'm excited to be here and be able to bring information and resources that could be useful for Lompoc residents. And 805 Undocufund is a nonprofit organization that serves Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. How much time do I have for the intro again? I'm sorry. 5 minutes? Okay.
5, 10 minutes. Sorry. There
Oh,
we go.
10 minutes. Okay. Um, we we were started in 2018 due to the Thomas Fire and the Montecito mudslides. We were created as a project and as a safety net system to bring funds for undocumented and mixed status households. Mixed status meaning that at least one family member is undocumented if the rest of the family has legal status, whether through asylum, refugee, permanent residency, or citizenship. And because undocumented people or mixed status families oftentimes are excluded from safety net systems like FEMA, unemployment, cash assistance, food stamps, Medi-Cal, we a group of nonprofits, Future Leaders of America, Cause, MyCop, and with the support of the McCune Foundation, created 805 on DocuFund as a project that was serving as a safety net system to bring financial support to undocumented and mixed status households that were being impacted by climate-induced disasters. It was 805 on DocuFund was created in response to the Thomas Fire, but because our region is very prone to climate-induced disasters, whether it's wildfires, floods, um, it became a ongoing need for 805 on DocuFund to continue fundraising and providing financial assistance to families here in the Central Coast. After 4 years of being a pilot project, because of the increased need of the undocumented community, 805 Undocufund became its own nonprofit. So we've been our own nonprofit for 4 years now, but the entire duration of the project and as a nonprofit, it's been about 8 years. And during those 8 years, we've distributed over $8 million in disaster relief, indirect aid to undocumented and mixed status households. So that's how 805 Undocufund started. And the direct aid is a short-term focus. Long term, we understand that we need to change the system at the policy level to ensure that these communities that are being excluded from not only safety net systems, but in many other parts of the democratic processes, we are seeking long term goals such as humane immigration reform that can give the undocumented community a legal status, a pathway to citizenship, so that they can become full citizens of this country. That's a long-term goal. There's a lot of work that we can do in terms of impacting policy, which some of my colleagues here, like Cause, will talk about, or Julissa, going over what the current immigration system looks like, because that's the long-term goal. But what we currently see now is that the system is being set up in a way to prevent this community from accessing those resources. And if we look at what's happening more currently with the ICE and immigration raids targeting the immigrant community and spreading community-wide fear that is now being spread beyond just anyone who is undocumented. But if you look a certain way, if your hair is brown or black, if your skin complexion is a certain tone, you are now a target. And I think we're all feeling that. If our last name is Latino sounding, you may be a target, right? I've spoken to many people who are citizens and have to now carry their passport, their papers. That's where we are. And it is because of that place that we knew that's what that was the focus of this administration, because we've been through a first administration under Trump one, the first administration. Now under Trump 2.0, we are seeing that the prosecution of the immigrant community is much more severe, aggressive, violent. So we have a rapid response network, which includes a hotline, and I can put it in the chat, or there's going to be some follow-up information. There will be a packet that will include that information. But we have a hotline that operates 24 hours, 7 days a week, where people can report if they see suspected immigration enforcement, if they see a suspicious vehicle. Lompoc hasn't been has seen its fair of targeted immigration enforcement. Just this past December, we had over 10 vehicles that were raiding different streets of Lompoc, and the community responded. Through our rapid response network, we train community members to become legal observers, patrollers. Mutual aid is something that we're looking at starting here in Lompoc and the Greater Valley region for
Just
families
a
that have.
reminder to slow down just a bit. The
Okay.
interpreter asked for a slowdown.
Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for the reminder.
Yeah.
We're looking at starting mutual aid in Lompoc and the Greater Valley region, San Ynez, Solvang, to support the families that may have a loved one that was disappeared or is going through some kind of immigration process. And we are a small nonprofit. We are just hired our 9th person. When we started this rapid response network, we just had 2 paid staff members, and as of January of last year. So we've quickly grown. We've established this infrastructure that is the 805 Rapid Response Network, that serves as a community safety mechanism that not only provides community safety through patrolling, through accompaniment, taking people to and from their immigration appointments, or maybe doctor's appointments, appointments at sensitive locations where there may be a fear of going alone or without anyone to accompany them through that process, including their master hearings that are completed down in the LA region. We have an accompaniment program now. We are developing the mutual aid. We already have established mutual aid in other cities, like, for example, Santa Maria and San Luis Obispo. There's a mutual aid program there. South Santa Barbara County, there's a mutual aid program there. There's various mutual aid projects in Ventura County. And I mentioned this because we know that Lompoc is a commuter town. Most people that live here work in other cities, mainly South Santa Barbara County, and as well as Santa Maria, or even the San Luis Obispo County region. So you know that our footprint expands beyond just the city of Lompoc. We have established infrastructure and safety net programs that cover the 3 counties, because Lompoc is a commuter town. So the main thing you need to remember, if you are someone that works with the immigrant community, if you are someone that has family members that need support connecting with one of the resources that you're going to learn about today, or if you see suspected immigration enforcement in your community, the main thing you need to know is call the hotline. We're going to be providing that phone number for you, because we not only respond to suspected immigration enforcement, we support families before and we support families after. We are in the process of bringing a full-time case manager to be able to expand a short-term crisis case management. And it is something that we'll be able to support in more detail. We're already doing it, but it's causing strains in our capacity. So we're bringing on more support so that we are able to provide the short-term crisis stabilization support to these families that does not exist in other nonprofits at the moment, not to the level, with the level of cultural sensitivity that is needed when someone is dealing with immigration enforcement that is poorly trained, is receiving directive to be inhumane, and we are trained and equipped to deal with these situations.
Great. Thank you, Primitiva, for that opening statement. I'm going to go to Brian Jaramillo now, our second speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Lockhart. Thank you, AAUW, for helping to organize this event. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here today to represent the Lompoc Unified School District for Families and Community. My understanding is there's some issues with the translation, so I'm going to pause after each statement just to make sure that perhaps that will help with the understanding. My name is Brian Jaramillo. You can go back to the first slide for a moment. And my position is Assistant Superintendent, Education Services. In our district, we are proud to have reframed our support this year for all students and families around the concept that we as a school district and as a community are stronger when we are together. And we believe that each and every family belongs as an active, important part of our school district and our community. Next slide, please. Our organization, Lompoc Unified School District, myself, our superintendent, Dr. Finneran, our principals, our school board, through a resolution, have a deep commitment to every student and a particular commitment to specific groups of students with unique needs, such as students who are immigrants or have family members who are immigrants. My personal history, as is the case of the histories of almost all of us here today, includes stories of immigrants. My paternal grandfather grew up speaking Spanish, an English learner in English-only speaking schools. My maternal grandfather immigrated from China to the United States when he was a teenager. My maternal grandmother's parents also immigrated from China. I'm a product of immigrants from more than a half dozen countries and honor their journey in my work and support of all families and students. For us in the Lompoc Unified School District, safety of students is first and foremost. To date, we have not had immigration enforcement on campus at any of our schools or any requests for information that I'm aware of. But we are prepared for immigration to be on campus, and we will make it as difficult as humanly and legally possible for immigration enforcement activities to occur on our campus. Here are a few of the systems we have in place. Signage, in the middle of the slide you can see in the screen, are signs that we have at every campus that makes it illegal for immigration enforcement to enter campus without district staff permission. We require specific legal documents, warrants and subpoenas from immigration enforcement, and copies of identification. District office approval, superintendent or designee, and district legal counsel review is required prior to authorizing immigration enforcement to enter campus or have access to records. Notification of parents immediately when immigration officials are identified on or near campus is required. Sites have specific protocols at their schools, and the superintendent, myself, and other district leaders are available in a moment's time to walk through any school through the process. Sites are also authorized to use all of the legal tools at their disposal to keep students safe. For instance, if an unauthorized individual were on a school campus, We could and would lock doors, shelter in place, or lock down the campus, make school-wide announcements, and take other measures specific to each site. Next slide, please. The other most important factor is ensuring that we are communicating effectively, providing information and support during this time. At our schools and on our website, we have a trifold pamphlet with information for families. We have printed copies of family preparedness plans at each site and available online. We have red cards available at the sites and again available online. We have staff available to support families through the process. And of course, we have a website with all of this information that we have revamped to make it easier for families to access what they need. The QR code on the screen will bring you straight to that website, or the website on the screen, lust.org/everyfamilybelongs. Each site, returning to the staff that are available, has a bilingual liaison to connect with families. At our community schools, our community school specialists are frequently out in front of the school doing drop-off and pickup to talk to families. Some of our sites have outreach consultants to support. Each site has a school counselor and a school social worker, and most of our sites have wellness coaches. We truly believe that we are stronger together as a district and as a community, and that every student deserves a safe, supportive school environment, and that every family belongs. There's contact information on our website, and you can contact each school individually if you need more information at any time. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share a brief description of how we're supporting our students and our families, and how you can connect with us if you need support. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for that statement. Just a reminder to those watching, you can type in questions into the Q&A at any time. Okay, our next speaker will be Julissa Pena. Go right ahead, Julissa.
Hold one moment. We're having trouble at off-site locations hearing our interpreter. So if our interpreter needs it either to be slowed down or can move the microphone closer while you're speaking, it might help address the situation. Thank you. All right.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation and giving me the opportunity to share about the Immigrant Legal Defense Center. I'll start with the basic overview of our mission, and then I'll go into a bit more detail about our programs and services. The Immigrant Legal Defense Center's mission is to provide equal access to justice and due process for low-income immigrants facing deportation proceedings across Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura counties. The reason why our mission is so important and powerful is because immigrants facing deportation proceedings who cannot afford a private immigration attorney are not appointed counsel at the government's expense. What this means is that immigrants, including unaccompanied immigrant children facing deportation proceedings, are essentially forced to represent themselves, while on the other side, you have a well-trained government attorney representing the interest of the Department of Homeland Security, arguing for the immigrant's removal, and many times arguing for the immigrant child's removal. So through our free legal representation program, our removal defense program, our goal is to address this huge imbalance of power
that exist in the immigration courtroom. The Immigrant Legal Defense Center, also known as ILDC, represents both detained and non-detained individuals in removal proceedings, also known as deportation proceedings. And this includes a number of migrant populations. For instance, it includes asylum seekers, community members who have lived here decades, who have had contact with ICE and have unfortunately been taken to an immigration detention center. And like I previously mentioned, unaccompanied immigrant children as well. In addition to providing removal defense, ILDC also represents undocumented children and youth who are under 21 years old. They're not in immigration court, meaning that they're not in deportation proceedings, but are eligible for a unique immigration relief protection that is not very well known. So I do want to focus some time today on it, especially since I'm probably speaking to a lot of parents at these schools. This protection is called Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. Its acronym is SIGIS. SIGIS is a form of protection available to youth who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both parents. And it requires that we prove that they cannot reunify with the parent that caused the harm, and for whom it is not in their best interest to return to their country of origin, to their home country. This process involves both state court findings. So it involves the first step is representation in state court to either establish custody or establish guardianship. And then it is that judge, the state court judge, that actually makes the findings for abuse, neglect, or abandonment, which is why this protection is so unique, because it is not an immigration officer. The immigration court does not have jurisdiction to make this finding. It is family law or probate court. And so therefore, many of the times, we have a lot more success. Until this day, knock on wood, we are representing over 100 SIGIS, unaccompanied, undocumented youth, children as well, who have successfully received approval for their SIGIS petitions and are on their way for a green card. And so if successful, this SIGIS protection provides a pathway to lawful permanent residency, also known as a green card. And eventually in 5 years, the adult by then, the child, would be eligible for U.S. citizenship. Recognizing that deportation proceedings and immigration-related trauma extend beyond the courtroom, ILDC decided 2 years ago to develop a holistic service model that integrates case management and trauma-informed counseling services. And so through this approach, we support our clients not only in navigating their immigration legal cases, but also in addressing the emotional, social, and practical challenges that arise from family separation, the instability of not knowing what's going to happen with their legal case, and the fear of ICE enforcement, especially during these times. Our team is still very small, and so our case management and counseling services are only reserved to the clients that we provide, that we have retained for legal services. And that's just what makes our program unique. We also don't want to duplicate services with other mental health service orgs that are already available to the community. So for now, we're going to stay small unless, the community sort of informs us. We're always actively listening that there's a gap in services, or there's not enough capacity through our partners. So beyond direct legal and social services, ILDC also engages in community education and most recently, a lot of policy advocacy. So we provide Know Your Rights trainings. Last year, we decided to redesign our Know Your Rights program. And so instead of us going out to the community to give these Know Your Rights presentations directly, what we decided to do is to instead lean on our partner organizations, train them on Know Your Rights, so that we would then have more capacity to expand our legal services, because that seems to be the biggest gap in services in our region at the moment. And so we've really leaned on our partner organizations to do a lot of like the family preparedness packets, to do a lot of the Know Your Rights presentations. And so what we do is just keep our partners informed about any immigration policy changes or laws that may impact the community's rights. And so we work alongside coalitions also and local leaders to advance policies that protect immigrant communities and uphold constitutional rights. We very much work alongside PAWS, 805 Undocufund, FLA, MICO, to move forward, for instance, just the right to have legal representation. And so through this partnership, we've achieved to finally receive some funding from the city of Santa Barbara, for instance, to provide some funding to hire a staff attorney dedicated for that city specifically. And those are efforts that in other times would have been impossible. But today, with this coalition power and community power, we've successfully secured some funding. And so through this integrated model, combining legal defense, social support, and advocacy, ILDC continues to strive to ensure that immigrant children, families, and individuals are not left to navigate one of the most complex legal systems alone, but are instead supported with dignity, care, and just a real opportunity to build a stable future just like anyone else. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'm open to answering any questions in a bit.
Great. Thank you very much, Julissa, for that statement. And I think we're going to go now to Monserrat.
Hello, good afternoon. I just want to check in first to confirm that they are able to hear for the Spanish interpretation.
Does one of our moderators want to come on mic?
We are doing our best with the volume. Unfortunately, the volume control from the Spanish language is controlled by the software, and we cannot raise that volume or lower the volume of either end of it. So we apologize for that. And so the interpreter is doing her best to speak louder with her mic closer to her to provide the translation.
And the channel is working, Monse.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monse. I am a DOJ accredited representative with Importa Santa Barbara. We do have 3 offices. I do work from the Santa Maria office, and I will be providing a little bit of information about who we are, clarifying what an accredited representative does, and then also sharing about our services towards the end, like everyone else has shared. If anyone has questions, feel free to email us or leave them down the Q&A box, and we will go ahead and answer them individually. So once again, I do work for Importa Santa Barbara, otherwise known as Importa. We have been in the Central Coast since 2012. That's when the U.S. Department of Justice authorized Importa to practice immigration law. Since then, we have become the leading provider of immigration legal services in the Santa Barbara County. In 2025, we had the opportunity to assist over 2,000 community members and we look forward to continue assisting them this year. So thanks to the grants that we received from the state of California, Importa has been able to provide most of our immigration legal services at either free of charge or at low cost. Some of the services that we do offer, and I'll name them, but we can go ahead towards the end. I'll focus on some that are not as known or as commonly known in the community, are DACA renewals, naturalization, the U visa, VAWA self-petitions, parole in place, FOIAs, family petitions, green card renewals. So if you are already a green card or a lawful permanent resident, you do have to renew those every 10 years. We do assist with those. The removal of conditions on your residency, adjustment of status, any waivers for unlawful presence, as well as advanced parole. So once again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I am an accredited representative. I am not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. The main difference between myself and a lawyer is that I am a partial accredited representative, meaning that the Department of Justice has authorized me to legally represent clients, specifically with their USCIS affirmative petitions. I am authorized to provide legal advice. However, because I'm only partially accredited, I cannot represent clients in immigration proceedings or deportation proceedings. There are some accredited representatives who are fully accredited, and I'll share a little bit more as to where you can find their information if you are seeking legal counsel, in court. The other thing about our accredited representation is that we must prove to the EOIR that we can continue serving our community, and we have to do this by renewing our accreditation every 3 years. So we are continuously receiving training, making sure that we are up to date with all the laws that are changing day to day within immigration policy. One of the main things that I have seen working with Importa is that our clients sometimes go to notaries, or they go to those who are unauthorized to practice immigration law, and they are scammed, which can have negative consequences, especially under this administration. As of February 28th of 2025, this administration issued a notice to appear policy memorandum, which does state that if some cases are denied, the client can be put into removal proceedings. So once again, now more than ever, it's crucial that you are careful and cautious about who you are seeking advice from. One of the main things that I do recommend, if you are receiving assistance from an attorney, you can go to Google, do a quick search, attorney search, put in their license number, their bar number, or their attorney's name, and confirm that they can legally represent you in California. As for the accredited representatives, it's something that I can't do now, but you could look up the accredited representatives roster. If you were to put in my legal name, I would appear as a representative who can actively assist clients within their immigration legal services. So once again, more than ever, it's very important that we are all cautious as a community as to who we're seeking advice from and what documentation we are submitting to USCIS. Even if you were to submit an application and later withdraw it, that can still put you into removal proceedings. So what Importa does is that we do offer all of our consultations free of charge. All of these general consultations, as I have always disclosed to clients, are just to see if you were to be eligible for an immigration petition, whether it be now or in the future, and what documents you can begin collecting in the meantime, right? We do know that, for example, we have clients who are waiting for their children to turn 21 years of age and then file a family petition. So that's something that we can get started now, confirm your eligibility, and then you could return, whether it be a couple months from there or years, so that we can assist you with finalizing that application. As mentioned, all of these services are free of charge. But the main ones that I want to focus on today are the following. Something that is known as the 245I, which is for any petition that may have been filed on your behalf on or before May 1st of 2001, whether it be your behalf, your spouse's, your parents, you may be entitled to a 245I. What the 245I does is that it uses the application or petition that was submitted before May 1st, 2001. And if you have someone who can file a petition for you, whether it be a U.S. citizen spouse or child, we can see if you're eligible for a green card or a lawful permanent residency. And all of that would be done within the U.S. This is one of the services that Importa does offer, once again, free of charge. Something else that we do assist with is the VAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act, which can be for either men or women. But for this one, you have to be either married to a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, and had to suffer abuse from the U.S. citizen spouse, whether it be psychological or physical. It could also be that you were a victim of abuse from your child, U.S. citizen child. The thing about the VAWA is that you don't need to have a police report, but you do have to be legally married to the U.S. citizen or lawful permanent spouse. So that is one of those applications. If you've ever been a victim of any abuse within a relationship, you can contact Importa and we can confirm if you're eligible for a VAWA. The U visa, I understand that some of you may already know what that is, and it's very complicated because for these ones, the undocumented victim has to cooperate with law enforcement, and they do have to report the crime that they suffered, whether it be themselves, a child, a spouse. And if the cooperation exists and the crime does qualify for the U visa or U non-immigrant status, they might be eligible to submit this petition, which would give them a work permit later on. It could potentially allow them to apply for a green card or lawful permanent residency. Something that I've been seeing a little bit more in our community has also been parole in place. For those parents who have children who are in the U.S. Armed Forces or are thinking about going to the U.S. Armed Forces, or you may know of someone who does have a spouse in the U.S. Armed Forces, you can contact our office to confirm if you're eligible for parole in place. What parole in place does is it gives you that legal entry without having to depart the U.S. Upon having that legal entry, if you are eligible, you can apply for your green card or your lawful permanent residency. And then, of course, we do have family members who, as mentioned at the beginning, have children who are about to turn 21 or did turn 21, and they want to see what their options are for that child to file a petition for their parents. I recommend that you contact our offices. Every case is very different. We have to confirm if you are eligible, once again, before submitting any application, especially because at the moment that we do submit something on your behalf, immigration or USCIS will know where you're living, where you're working, and if you're not eligible for that application, it could lead to removal proceedings. If you're not eligible for anything at the moment, but you do have some doubts about an application that was submitted on your behalf years ago, or you are in immigration proceedings, but you are not sure why you were put into this immigration proceedings, we can assist you in submitting a FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, which does disclose your records or responses from the department stating why you were put into the removal proceedings, or any applications or copy of applications that were submitted on your behalf. So that's a brief little summary of the services that we do offer. As mentioned, our main goal of this is for you to understand the importance of being careful who you're going to, right? I understand that right now there's more than ever, we want to make sure if we're eligible for something. I don't want you to be in fear, knowing or thinking what could happen in the future. Am I eligible? Am I not? Instead of living with that doubt, you can contact our offices, confirm if you are eligible. And as mentioned, we can get started on assisting you with an application versus going elsewhere, the possibility of being scammed, and then that leading to immigration removal proceedings. So thank you so much for the information that you have allowed me to share with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the Q&A box.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much, Monserrat. Wow. I think now let's go, Eric, if you're ready to give your statement. I know you're off camera. There you go. All right, Eric, if you'd like to talk a little bit about cause, about 10 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you to all the other panelists for sharing like really important information. I think it's really vital for all of us to come together and share whatever resources that we have to make sure that folks are safe. So in regards to cause, so cause stands for Central Coast Alliance United for a Sustainable Economy. We are more so in the business of organizing folks and also understanding that aside from our communities being legally vulnerable, they're also vulnerable to other parts um, of like life. For example, our three big main issue areas are environmental justice, so making sure that folks have access to clean air, clean water. If they're working jobs that require them to be around like pesticides of, sorts of like that, make sure that folks are aware of their rights, either in their labor space, but also the power that they have as community members to come together and organize and advocate and demand for better living conditions. So I mentioned one of our issue areas. Our other issue areas is housing justice. Everyone deserves a good place to sleep, or, a roof over the head that's not falling in on them, making sure that they know their rights as tenants with their landlords. And then our third issue area is immigrant worker power. So making sure that we're organizing folks who are on the Central Coast who identify as undocumented, um, in regards to like their labor. So a lot of, we see that agriculture is a really, really big industry here in town, in Lompoc and Santa Maria across the Central Coast. And as many of us know, a lot of the folks who make up the backbone of that workforce for that big industry that takes all this profit is undocumented workers. So making sure that undocumented workers are organized, know their rights, know what their power in numbers comes with, and that is, bringing folks to the table and making sure that they're being heard, and also making sure that, their rights are being honored, but also their demands are being honored as well for folks who are working, conditions that aren't so favorable, and just like in situations where maybe working more than one job, et cetera, just making sure that folks have that ability to organize in their workplace or either outside of their workplace in their community specifically. So cause specifically in Lompoc, we're not new to the Central Coast. We have chapters from Santa Paula ranging all the way down to Santa Maria. We opened our Lompoc office for cause in August. And our first actual big step was establishing our youth committee. So we have a really strong and robust youth committee from all walks of life and all, youth leaders who have parents who are immigrants who are involved in the fight for the same reason, that they want to advocate on behalf of their family, on behalf of themselves and their community. And we're also in the process of building our adult committee. So our adult committee is also comprised of folks from all walks of life, but mostly specifically on the largest demographic that is Lompoc, which is undocumented folks or Latinx folks within the city of Lompoc. Yeah, and actually, as of recently, our community organizer, who's also on this call, her name's Angelica Toralba, is also in the process of establishing that adult committee, like mentioned, and getting folks to be able to come together, see their collective people power, strategizing in regards to advocacy, communications, but also, politically seeing like who we can work with in the city of Lompoc to make sure that everyone has a happy and healthy Lompoc. So I won't take too much of everyone's time. I think that more so just plugging that organizations like Cause that, focus on these issue areas of making sure that, our environment is just, our housing is just, but also that our folks who are undocumented within the workplace are also, having their rights heard and also coming together and like, really honing in on that people power that comes with, being a Lompoc resident, but also of, part of a larger community at large. So if you guys have any questions about how y'all can get involved, how we can all come together in a space to strategize, advocate, and organize, I will leave my community organizer's phone number and also our website if you guys need more details around anything, or if you guys want to inquire more on what we're doing in Lompoc and how we can all get involved together. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for all the panelists for speaking. I think now what we're going to do is go to questions that may have come in from our viewers. I know those are being collected right now. Quite a few questions came in during registration. It's we're still open, so those out in the audience, if you have a question, maybe it wasn't talked about. Maybe you have just a general question about something that's going on in your life or someone you know. Go ahead and type it into the Q&A, and we'll ask it and see who wants to take the question. Or if you want to ask a question of somebody in specifically one of the groups that just spoke, just put that in that you want, Eric to answer or Julissa, but we'll definitely have people respond. Okay.
All right. The first question that we had submitted is, can you speak to the resources available to LUSD staff?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds like a natural for Brian Jaramillo.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I know it is important to get information and resources to staff so that they can have these conversations, know how to have conversations with students in the context of school. And so what we have provided on the website page that's linked into both my presentation and I know it'll be in the resources later on. Again, that's lusd.org-every family belongs. One of the buttons as you scroll down is for staff resources. And so when you click on those resources, there are a number of elements there. One is some suggestions on how to talk to kids about ICE. Another one is an educator guide that will give some practical guidance for staff to support students. And of course, we don't expect that you're just going to be able to look at the resources and be able to, naturally just be able to use them. So encourage there to be conversations within your professional learning communities with other staff members, at staff meetings with leadership teams, where people can collaborate on how to have these conversations and what to do in certain circumstances. As a school district, we'd also be willing to come in and talk to groups and provide some support if there are specific groups that want somebody from experts in the district or even facilitate other community organizations to come and help with those discussions.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I only thing I would add to that, Brian, is the school webpage is available to the public too. So if people just have general questions, that's something that people can also look at, who may or may not be employees, I imagine. So I noticed that there are quite a number of good resources there.
Agree. For staff in any settings and also for family members may be interested in the staff resources too. So it's there for everybody. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ms.
Great. I'm going to go on to another question that I see that came in during registration. And actually, I think all the panelists can maybe speak to this a little bit. What can we do to help our immigrant community? That's a biggie, but maybe if you, from your perspective, you want to start, maybe who wants to take a first stab? Julissa, would you like to maybe give your first thoughts on what we can do to help our immigrant community?
Yeah, I think my answer is probably going to be more general. I don't mean to volunteer Primi, but I think the nature of Primi's work allows for more tangible volunteer opportunities than maybe a legal service agency. We normally do, in better times, we would definitely onboard volunteers for our legal program, but things weren't as changing as much. During the current administration, things are changing so much that it's made it very difficult for us to oversee volunteers. And so we've sort of put a pause on that. But I still think that this is a really important question. And I do have some general recommendations. I think first we have to understand that supporting immigrant communities is not just about moments of crisis. I think that's something that I've tried to stress in all the presentations I've given, because it's really essentially about consistent everyday action, protects rights, dignity, and stability. And so I think that a few meaningful ways that anyone can help is just by getting informed and sharing accurate information. We know that misinformation, it causes real harm. And so I recommend people take time to learn about constitutional rights. There's so many resources out there, and share trusted resources within your networks. You know, knowledge is one of the strongest forms of protection. I think these times are really testing us, and we should really take it seriously to become aware about our rights, because I think one of the things that become more the clearest recently has been that all of our rights are at stake at this point. And so another way that you can get involved, and that we desperately need everyone's help, is to advocate and join us. Even just your presence enough is powerful at the local, state level. Just even being present at city council meetings or a county board of supervisors meetings to advocate for funding for legal services, for cash assistance, for funding for mental health services, and also to push forward policies that protect all our due process rights, right? And then just so continue to support organizations that are doing this work, however it's possible for you, right? There are several organizations out there that are doing incredible work. Some of them are here, some of our strongest partners. So I encourage you to stay connected. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, Primitiva, I heard your name. You want to add on to that?
Yes, thank you for that. I would say for those that are wanting to help and figure out what else they can do besides resharing posts online and trying to get involved. That is something that we are seeing more and more of, is people going to these events such as the No Kings that is coming up, and utilizing their rights under the Constitution to protest and to demonstrate and be part of nonviolent movements. But there's a very critical and important piece that comes after, which is after joining a protest, a demonstration, is there's a lot of there's many different ways that you can get involved based on your level of risk tolerance, because when it comes to rapid response, at least speaking specifically about 805 Undocufund and the work that we're doing, oftentimes what captures the greatest attention are the news of volunteers getting pepper sprayed, or community members getting violently arrested for speaking up and protecting their neighbors. But that's not the only way that you can get involved in rapid response. That presents the far the most severe and unfortunately violent situations that are unfolding in our very own cities. But we also do, like I mentioned earlier, mutual aid, accompaniment. So roles within the rapid response network that don't involve being in the front lines and risking your own, at this point, health and safety. I mean, even your life, right? We've seen what's happened in Minnesota and happening in many cities. That's not what we would like to see. And we plan and prepare for other ways that people can get involved. Mutual aid, like I said, is one area where we're going to be expanding, not only here in Lompoc, but in the Greater Valley region. There's already established mutual aid groups where they need drivers, they need people to help us sort out the food, deliver to these families that have been impacted, and always taking into account their safety and security. So you may not see very much of this out there in socials because we're very intentional with how we safeguard people's confidential information. Accompaniment, like I said, fundraising. A lot of the fundraising for 805 Undocufund is being done by volunteers. They're coming up with art projects that they can do, creating awareness, raising awareness around what's happening. It's most of it is all being done by volunteers. I think that's something that I want to stress through this answer for those that are looking at ways how to help. A lot of the impact that you see out there that we are having as an organization is a great deal because of our volunteers, because of our passionate, engaged, and motivated volunteers. We're a very small team. We could not possibly be doing this ourselves. We may be the organization behind it and guiding, but it is the people on the ground, the volunteers that are doing this work and working on connecting and growing our people powered, like Eric was saying. This is all community led, community driven, and we need more. We need more support.
Okay, great. Monserrat, do you want to add anything to what's been said about helping our immigrant community?
Yeah, no, I mean, like Primi and Julissa were sharing, the thing that I see the most is sharing the accurate information, right? There's times where people are saying that there was ICE sightings, or that if you go to this person, they'll help you submit an application and it'll be correct. Or you can't compare your situation to others people's situation. So just making sure that any information that we are sharing, whether it be on social media, via text message, we are sharing trusted resources so that it doesn't cause fear in our community, right? We've seen that last year during the beginning of this Trump administration, where people were afraid to leave their households. People were seeing cars that they believed were from ICE agents and afraid to once again leave their households, go to their jobs. But something else that Primi did talk about was, if you are available and you're willing to provide transportation, that is something that I do see the need for, especially right now under this administration. They're issuing biometrics appointments to every client, and many of these are those who don't have family members who are U.S. citizens who can be present with them, right? We don't want to put anyone in any danger. So if you are able to, as mentioned, and you are at capacity to offer your services, volunteer with 805 Undocufund to provide the transportation to clients, that would be something that would be very beneficial for all community members, but especially those who are currently under an immigration petition.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I'm going to go back to our question and answers that might have come in from our watch parties or anyone who is watching on Zoom. Do we have any questions that have come in?
We do. One that came in is there an Importa in Ventura County or something similar?
There is an Importa in Ventura County. I do also want to share that if anyone lives in Lompoc and you would like to be seen in Santa Maria, we are currently doing everything remote, or majority of our services remote, because I know that everyone wants to be safe, right? And with everything happening in our community right now, we have transitioned to do our consultations via Zoom, via phone call. But to answer your question, we do have 3 offices. One of them is located in Santa Barbara. I am here in the Santa Maria office, and we do have an office in Ventura as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The other question from our Q&A is for school district. The question comes from La Cañada. What if you are a resident but get detained? What would happen to our children, and what is the best advice?
So I can certainly clarify from the school district perspective. I think it probably applies to more than just the school district. Um, However, in the case of your children and being able to attend school, um, if you are not available as a parent, the adults that your children are with will be able to go to the school and do a caregiver's affidavit that will be able to allow them to serve as um, kind of a somewhat of a surrogate parent in your absence. And so I just encourage you to reach out. I would encourage whoever is in that position to reach out to the school of the children and talk about what's happening so that we can make sure that the children continue to receive their education as long as they're able to be, they can still physically attend school. As far as beyond that, I think maybe somebody else on the panel may have more information on other aspects of that question.
Anybody else want to add to that? So as I understand it, it would be a parent who is undocumented and was detained. Is that what I'm hearing? I didn't get the part about the resident because that made me think that they are legally, they have a green card.
It did not clarify other
Okay.
than saying a resident. So the implication, I agree, is that they are a green card, but it could be a resident, as we've unfortunately seen. Some residents
Or
are just being
just
detained
detained.
and are having to prove their residence.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else to add to that one? So it's not what I like. I guess what I heard from Brian is that this is something I guess this affidavit could be done at school. But then I just saw Julissa, if you wanted to add something about the legality of that, anything that would add.
No, I think Brian covered it well. I think I
Okay.
would recommend that a good starting point would be a family preparedness packet. Usually those family preparedness packets include an overview on the caregiver's authorization affidavit. It's not a document that needs to be notarized. A lot of undocumented parents are worried or are wanting to get it signed and notarized before. The caregiver's authorization affidavit doesn't even need the parent's signature. It becomes valid the moment that the parent is no longer available and the caregiver who is stepping in to care for the children while the parent or parents are not available signs makes it valid at that point. And so it's very simple, but I recommend starting with the family preparedness packets. There are so many out there that are so great. ILDC did draft one. It's pretty comprehensive, much longer than others typically, but it's because we include a lot of description, explanations, a lot of mental health resources as well. But there are so many out there. I think Brian mentioned that there's one on their website. I'm sure it's great as well. So I would recommend starting with that.
That's great.
Yeah, and the ones on our websites are really, most of them are links to information from the organizations represented here. So these are great community partners.
Great. Anything else that's come in, Janelle, from the different sites?
Well, during registration, we had a few more questions. Again, I encourage anyone who would like to ask a question to post it in the Q&A, but one of the ones that came in via registration was, beyond supporting and protecting immigrant neighbors, what do you each view as the best way to address those who defend, support, or enable ICE?
So this is what arguments can we give to some of the people we come in contact with who are defending ICE or who think they're doing a good job? What can we say in response? Who wants to take a first stab at that? It's almost a mindset, right? How do we combat that kind of thinking, or at least provide some logical reasons why this is not the appropriate way of enforcing laws in our country.
I can add some information, but I'm sure Julissa might be able to add more on what ILDC is seeing currently in the courts because that's an argument that we oftentimes hear when advocating for the undocumented community is why didn't they come here the right way, like many others do? And we could attempt to go over an entire history, longstanding history of when of why that's not feasible, right? But just focusing on what we are currently seeing on the ground is that there hasn't been a comprehensive immigration reform since the 60s, since Ronald Reagan. So and I'm sure Julissa could speak more to that, but we are dealing with an outdated immigration system that has not been updated in decades. It wasn't working before, and now with the dismantling of whatever due process existed, it's even further broken than what it was. So that's the number one thing we can say is we haven't had a comprehensive immigration reform in decades. There's been a slow and methodical dismantling of whatever immigration system existed. And people that are coming from other places here undocumented is not by choice. If they had any other choice, no one leaves their home because they want to leave their home and everything they've known and the family, the home they grew up with, their friends, family. No one does that willingly. The people that are coming here are being displaced due to economic hardships, due to violence, due to climate-induced displacement. And this country used to represent opportunities for those that wanted to pursue a different way of life. I don't know that this country represents that as it is right now, right? But that's why people have come. That's why people like myself came here at the age of 15 undocumented, because there were not going to be no education opportunities for women like me back home. There is no line. If there is a line, let me know where it is so that I can send all the people that are living in fear get on that line. But there is no line, and the people that are being prosecuted right now are targeted or detained and in these inhumane concentration camps or detention centers, prisons. It's prison. That's what it is. Are not your violent criminal offenders. Over 70% of the people that are detained, women, children, and adults, are not your violent criminal offenders. So those are the arguments that you can use. It's a profit. This is a profit, and it's modern day slavery on how to get people to work for very for free almost, and that's what it is. That's what it is. It's not about removing violent criminal offenders. It never was. And that's something that we have to come to terms as a country of what the true intent behind this targeting of an entire community means and what the true focus is.
I'll add in a response as well. As a representative of the school district, I'm not here to share my personal political views, but I can say and would add information from the school district that as a community, it is our responsibility to take care of the youth and children in our community. Education doesn't happen by just employees in a school district. It happens through full community support. And the situation right now with immigration and the enforcement is impacting students negatively in schools. It's impacting attendance, it's impacting mental health, anxiety, which can lead to behavior and can lead to conflict in schools. And so the things that are happening is having an impact on the entire system. And that is something for people to consider on whether they, on the views that they have of what's going on. If we look at it from the standpoint of the students in our schools and what they need. And so, at the very least, we should be all be committed to helping all of our kids to have a safe and supportive environment, and to be able to have access to an educational environment, and be caring for each other as a community.
Thank you, Brian, for that. Thank you, Primitiva. Any other questions that have come in? Let's see.
So we do have a final question that's come in, and it's probably the last question for our session given the time. It is, what protections do we have as citizens from ICE when filming kidnappings or incidents?
I'm happy to answer that question, but please feel free to anyone else chime in. I know Primi and Primi's team have been doing an incredible job ensuring that their volunteers are informed about their constitutional rights. So please feel free to chime in. But I'll just, I guess respond generally. So it is important people remember that as citizens and non-citizens, everyone has the right to observe and record law enforcement activity, including ICE operations, as long as you do not interfere. This right is protected under the First Amendment. However, we've seen huge violations of due process and human rights. And so we do want people to consider their safety first when doing so. And so going back to some of the limits and considerations I recommend you all have under a First Amendment right is what you are allowed to do is you can film ICE agents in public spaces, including streets, sidewalks, and parks. You can document arrests or enforcement actions. You can take notes. You can ask questions and observe. You can even share these recordings publicly, and 805 Undocufund has been doing an incredible job doing so and showing what is truthfully happening in our community. What you cannot do is you cannot physically interfere with an arrest or an operation, nor do we recommend it because we know that has led to even death at times. You cannot obstruct agents' movement or access. You still have to comply with like lawful orders if, for instance, they do have a judicial court order signed by a judge. But important protections, remember, that you have is that ICE agents cannot and are not allowed to confiscate your phone or camera without a judicial warrant. They cannot delete your recordings, and just remember the golden rule and right is you have the right to remain silent if they start questioning you. So just, practical safety guidance we always recommend is just keep a safe distance, avoid escalating the situation, and if possible, film in a way that captures identifying information like badges, vehicles, without putting yourself at risk. Be mindful about that. And be mindful that ICE agents may not always clearly identify themselves, right? That's what we're seeing nowadays is they're wearing masks to avoid accountability, right? So just always be careful and mindful about, of your safety.
Important to know. Anybody want to add anything, Primitiva?
Uh, yeah, I can add the advice that we provide at our trainings for volunteers. And like Julissa was saying, the First Amendment protects you and it gives you the right to record not only immigration enforcement, but any law enforcement. As community members, we have the right to hold them accountable and ensure that that they're following their own laws, which we know that ICE has not, despite what we hear from Department of Homeland Security. It has been legal observers and just community members pulling out their phones that have been able to expose what's been truly happening out there. So that is protected under the First Amendment. And like Julissa was saying, the Fourth Amendment gives you the right to privacy, and explicitly protects you the right against unreasonable search and seizure of your person, vehicle, or home. You have the right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment. Under the Sixth Amendment, you have the right to due process if you are arrested. But also, additionally to what Julissa was saying, is these rights will not protect you unless you assert your rights. You need to know your rights and you need to assert your rights, especially when being questioned by law enforcement. Be sure to assert your rights during all interactions, and also these rights are not magic. It will not stop a lawless administration. The rights here are meant to protect you during legal proceedings, not to prevent harassment by law enforcement, because we know that this is a rogue department that has been demonstrated to be acting with impunity. So even with all of the rights that we have under this Constitution, just know that there may be situations where after asserting them and knowing your rights, it may still not protect you. That is the reality that we're currently living in this country.
Okay. Monse, did you have anything else to add that hasn't been already shared?
I believe the main question was for U.S. citizens, but just something that I do want to add, right? Because you might find yourself as well, if you are undocumented during these encounters, just being aware to not provide any false information. Like Julissa and Primi have shared, you have the right to remain silent. However, if you do share any information, which we hope it doesn't come to that point, being very careful about what you are sharing. Anything could be used against you. And we have seen as well where sometimes clients, because of the fear, right, they say that they are U.S. citizens or residents, and that can have negative effects later on if they are attempting to file a petition within USCIS.
Thank you for that, Monse. I think maybe this might be a good opportunity to go to our path forward slide. And so I just want to share this information. So, we've heard a lot about kind of the results of the current administration and how it's being implemented. But, we also want to talk about change and how do you change the situation? Where do you change the process? And that happens in voting. That happens where people become participating in this country, which is a democracy. And so for those of you who are eligible to vote but have not registered, now is the time, okay? Because we're going to be coming up on some midterm elections. So there's your website, and the League of Women Voters North Santa Barbara County has an excellent web page of information that's available. We're also going to be posting this webinar, which has been recorded, we are going to be posting that on the AAUW YouTube channel and also on our website. And that also appears there on the screen. I also wanted to share, we don't have a slide, but I did want to share that if you go to the League of Women Voters, North Santa Barbara County, they will also be having another forum on immigration on April 9th from 5:15 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in Santa Maria at the Allen Hancock College. More details available on their webpage. And then here for resources and questions, these are some informations from each of the organizations that spoke today. We have the slides here posted. So one is for 805 Undocufund. You see they have short-term financial relief to undocumented residents and advocacy for long-term systems change. There's the web page and phone number. Immigrant Legal Defense Center, that was Julissa, Pena. They provide pro bono legal services for indigent immigrants in deportation proceedings. There's the web page and also phone number. Okay, my screen went hid that part. Importa SB Immigration Legal Services, web page and phone number, also days and times of operation. Okay, do we have a next slide on Lompoc Unified? Okay, California School Immigration Safety Resources. That is an excellent web page as well for the entire community, whether you have children at the schools or not. And then cause, Eric had to attend another meeting, but he has left some excellent information. They are still very active here in Lompoc, doing community organizing. There's the web page and the phone number. And before we go, I have to give thank yous to our panelists. So thank you very much for our panelists, Primitiva Hernandez, Eric Ramirez Zepeda, Monserrat Nolasco, Julissa, Pena, and Brian Jaramillo. Also, the tremendous job of our interpreter, Maricela Trenado. Thank you, Lompoc Unified School District, for her services. Also, our sponsors. This webinar could not have happened without the support of the League of Women Voters, North Santa Barbara County. Also, the Association of American University Women, the Lompoc-Vandenberg branch. Our Lompoc Unified School District, thank you very much. And for those of you at the watch parties, thank you for Route 1 Farmers Market. There were some goodie bags there. Also, we want to thank the viewers at our watch parties. Thank you so much for coming out and attending the school sites. And for those of you on Zoom, we really appreciate you supporting this effort. And there were so many people who supported us. We call them informally our Immigration Forum volunteer team. We had AAUW members doing technical support, handing out flyers, working with Allen Hancock College, so our college students knew about this seminar. Route 1, thank you so very much for all the work you've been doing. There have been programs that have been providing grocery and other support through 805 Undocufund. Thank you so much, Lompoc School District. We couldn't have done it without you. Have I forgotten anything?
I think you've got it all.
I got it all. Okay, we're going to let you go. Thank you very much, panelists. Just tremendous, great information shared this afternoon. And we welcome your feedback. So let us know how we can do this differently, better in the future. And thank you so much for your attendance. All right.
Thank
Have a
you
good
for the
afternoon.
Thank you so much,
invitation.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.